Yo, look at the odds. Yo, this is the trilogy of all trilogies.
Hi, this is Joe Cortez. You're watching ShowBizz, The Adult.
Oh, this is Bernard Hopkins, ShowBizz, The Adult. I'm out.
Oops! Up off net! Up off net! What's up, my people? This is ShowBizz, The Adult. Alright, man, look. So, Deontay, a bronze bomber Wilder versus Tyson, the Gypsy King Fury 3, postponed. And I put my money where my mouth is. Who do I have? Miocic or Cormier? Whoops! Alright, man, look. Let's get to the video. First, I want to say this. I will be going live this weekend, August 15th. Boy, for the Cormier versus Miocic fight, their third fight, the final fight for Daniel Cormier, so he says. But August 15th got a lot of fights, man. So I may be turning back and forth. Primarily, I'm going to be looking at the UFC card, which is a great card, by the way, and we'll be diving into that. But PBC has a good card. They got David Benavidez coming back. On top of that, DAZN as well. You have who I think is one of the best female boxers in the world, Cecilia Brækhus. She's fighting this weekend. And hold on. I want to say this. I did add in my community that I personally think that she's the best female fighter in the world. I've been looking at her for a long time. She's been holding it down for a long time, okay? I think she's a bad girl. I think Cecilia, Katie, Amanda, Clarissa, I think those are the best female boxers in the world. I think they're awesome. Oh, and I want to say this. In my community, when I mentioned Katie Taylor, and there were responses saying, well, hey, look, I saw her have a hard fight against Pearson. And I want to say this about that. Fighters have hard fights. Cecilia, she's had some wars in there, and I personally love boxing. I love combat sports, and I love seeing the best fighters fight each other. So I have no problem with highly competitive fights. But, you know, I've heard that before when it comes to, you know, Katie Taylor versus Pearson, Floyd Money Mayweather versus Castillo. That was a hard fight. Floyd isn't that good. I mean, dude, you have hard fights. I heard that about Errol the True Spence versus Showtime Sean Porter. Spence was exposed. No, Showtime Sean Porter's a bad boy. And it was a highly competitive fight, and it was great to watch. And Errol Spence, he got the nod. I think that's why we're here. So when a fighter has a tough fight, that doesn't mean that they're not as great. I just wanted to make that point. Actually, it has a lot to do with their greatness. I think great fights and tough fights define them as great fighters. You kind of know what they do and how they meet adversity. And I want to say this. We have a winner. We have a winner for the boxing card bundle. This bundle right here. I've given away this bundle of cards to Kashaf Malik. So, come get your cards, man. How you receive your cards, I added a code to one of your comments. So find that code, email me that code, along with your name and your address, and I will be shipping the cards to you shortly. Congratulations to Malik. So, Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder versus Tyson the Gypsy King Fury. It looks like that fight is being postponed, being pushed out. We had that soft date of December. Well, it seems as though it's getting pushed out to February. And Bob Arum was saying the reason for that is because of the coronavirus. They would like for fans to be there. They would like for there to be a crowd for this fight. And they're expecting it to be a big one. So they pushing it out to February. And once again, Dillian Whyte isn't happy. And Eddie Hearn has responded to this by saying that Dillian the Body Snatcher Whyte should replace Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder as Tyson the Gypsy King Fury's next opponent. And I want to say this about that. You know, when I heard that Tyson the Gypsy King Fury and Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder, that fight looked like it was going to go down in December, I had my questions. Because I'm like, I couldn't see Tyson Fury having a 2-month turnaround and taking on Dillian the Body Snatcher Whyte come February to satisfy his mandatory. I just couldn't see it. Because I'm like, really? That's just crazy to have such a short turnaround. I mean, the only one that I've seen really that crazy in the heavyweight division was Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder taking on Luis Ortiz and turning around and taking on his biggest level of opposition ever in Tyson Gypsy King Fury in 2 months. And you saw what happened there. Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder had no legs. And like I said before, the one thing I know about history is it tends to repeat itself. So I just didn't think Tyson the Gypsy King Fury would be that crazy and take on Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder come December and then turning around in 2 months to take on Dillian the Body Snatcher Whyte come February. And I don't know. Is the coronavirus an excuse for Team Fury? Is it an excuse for Bob Arum and company to say, hey, look, we prefer a crowd? And Mauricio Suleiman, he has used the coronavirus, and rightfully so, as a reason for pushing out the mandatory date for Dillian the Body Snatcher Whyte. Look, there's a pandemic, so we had to push out that mandatory date to February. Now it's kind of being used again. Like, hey, look, man, we prefer a crowd, so the fight should happen sometime in February. Which, it makes sense to me, but what does that say for Dillian the Body Snatcher Whyte? Once again, his mandatory date must be pushed out further. And I know it's not okay. It's not okay for Eddie Hearn and Dillian the Body Snatcher Whyte. It's not okay, but I think it's just fine for the fans. I mean, first of all, Dillian the Body Snatcher Whyte has to get past Povetkin. And for me personally, that's not a certainty. The reason why I feel most of the fans will be okay with Dillian Whyte not replacing Deontay Wilder as Tyson Fury's next opponent is because, quite frankly, we've never really seen Dillian the Body Snatcher Whyte look like a great heavyweight. I think the general consensus is that he's kind of like a B-level heavyweight. And yes, Ring Magazine has him ranked over Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder. And that is a head scratcher, but it is what it is. I mean, Ring Magazine is the Bible of boxing. But Dillian Whyte, he has looked good in performances like against Joseph Parker and Chisora, their second fight. And he always puts up a good fight. He's known to be dribbled off the canvas against the likes of like Oscar Rivas. He's known to look bad against the likes of Whack. Who? So for me, Dillian the Body Snatcher Whyte, he fights at the level of his opposition. And I think he's going to do it again against Povetkin. It's going to be a tough fight. And Povetkin is one hell of a fighter. He only lost to AJ, only lost to Klitschko. He had that tough draw with Hunter. So I think Povetkin makes a good fight out of it, and he may even just win the fight. I really don't have a horse in the race in that fight. So with that said, I don't think the heavyweight landscape is in a bad position now that the fight's been pushed out to February and Dillian Whyte has to wait. I mean, I don't know. Let me know how you feel in the comments below. Do you think the heavyweight division is better off with Dillian Whyte replacing Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder? Because I know some of you kind of feel like, wait, this third fight with Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, we kind of know what's going to happen there too. I mean, a lot of people are assuming Tyson Gypsy King Fury is going to beat Deontay Wilder maybe even easier than he did the second time. Now, let's talk the UFC. I think it's a fantastic card. I really can't wait to call it live this weekend. I will be doing my live stream commentary. And I think with all of the great fights this weekend, you should visit BUFR.com/ShowBizz. And in a moment, I will be breaking down who I think will be victorious that night, Miocic or Cormier. And I will be putting my money where my mouth is. I'm looking to bet 500 on the fight. So real quick, let's discuss the card. I mean, I really like the undercard. I like the Rosenstrike versus Dos Santos. I think that's one heck of a fight. I think Dos Santos is getting a little long in the tooth, and it may just be Rosenstrike's time. Rosenstrike is one of those guys who just has a full tank all the time, and he keeps his power late. I think Rosenstrike stops Dos Santos. And surprisingly enough, we have the always entertaining The Sugar Show, Sugar Sean O'Malley versus Vera. The reason why I say it's surprising is because the guy just fought. We just saw The Sugar Show, what, 2 months ago? And he's taking on a well-rounded, very good fighter in Vera, which I think is going to be a tough fight. He hasn't had an opponent on this level, not in my opinion. But I think Sugar Sean O'Malley is special. I said that years ago when I first started this channel. I think Sugar Sean O'Malley wins again via KO. Now let's discuss the main event. Daniel Cormier versus Stipe Miocic. I mean, this is the trilogy of all trilogies. I think that this is the best trilogy. And I did a breakdown comparison of the trilogy of Fury and Wilder and Cormier and Miocic. And Cormier and Miocic trilogy just is a better trilogy. Cormier is one of the greatest fighters in UFC history, and he is promising that this is going to be his last performance. Of course, like with all great fighters, you gotta question it. I mean, you know, warriors are addicted to the battlefield. But Cormier says that this is going to be his last fight. This is a historic moment, so you gotta be there. As for Stipe Miocic, when you kind of think about it, I mean, Miocic is the greatest heavyweight of all time in UFC history. But when breaking this fight down and looking at the tape and looking at fights over and over again, I must say I think Daniel Cormier is just a better fighter than Stipe Miocic. I think he's more well-rounded. I think he can do more things. Heck, Stipe Miocic is what? The boxer of boxers, okay, when it comes to the heavyweight division. And when Daniel Cormier beat him the first time, he beat him by punching him in his face and knocking him out. And then when you look at the second fight, I mean, Cormier almost stopped him again. After that slam and ground and pounding Stipe Miocic, Daniel Cormier was actually looking at the ref like, hey, aren't you going to stop this fight? And with Stipe Miocic being a great fighter, I mean, the greatest heavyweight of all time, he adjusted. He started landing that left hook to the body of Daniel Cormier. Daniel Cormier, he just could not absorb those body shots. And Stipe Miocic ended up dropping him with the right hand and finishing Daniel Cormier. And I can understand with people seeing that outcome and saying, hey, look, Stipe Miocic is the better fighter. Look at how he adjusted to Daniel Cormier. I mean, the first fight just was quick, and maybe that was a lucky overhand right landed by Cormier. In this second fight, it went many more rounds, and adjustments were made, and Stipe Miocic ended up on top. I understand that. But when I watch the fight, I mean, I just look at a guy in Daniel Cormier who, if he gets Stipe on the ground, I mean, he controls him again. And then you ask yourself, well, why didn't he do that again in that fight? And the answer to that is simple. I mean, I remember that Daniel Cormier had a disc problem in his back. And I remember him attempting to pick up Stipe Miocic again and say, hey, look, man, I just can't do it. So he starts standing and striking Stipe. He didn't even really make a strong attempt at taking Stipe down after the first time he ground and pounded him. And I know many people kind of see Daniel Cormier as someone who was distracted the second time round, because I know he wanted that Brock Lesnar fight. And he was doing many things with the media, and now with the coronavirus, all Daniel Cormier has is time to focus on this. Plus, he's making this his last hurrah. So he seems to be more focused, and maybe that's the case. But for me, I see it as simply he had a back issue that second fight. If he takes Stipe Miocic down again, he controls him again and maybe stops him. I think with Daniel Cormier's back being healthy, I think he stands and he strikes with Stipe Miocic a little bit this third time, but I think he goes for the takedown. If you look at the tape in that second fight, it's like, well, Miocic can't do anything with Daniel Cormier on the ground, and that's what you would expect. So I think Daniel Cormier takes Stipe Miocic down, and I think he stops him. In this third fight, I got Daniel Cormier beating Stipe Miocic, and I'm willing to put $500 down to do it. So let's go to busr.com/showbiz to do just that. Yo, look at the odds. Yo, this is the trilogy of all trilogies. I'm going to choose Daniel Cormier. So let's see. Let me bet. No, not that 2,000. I lost that 2,000. Okay, I get that back. Okay, cool. That's 500 potential win. So that's about $1,000. I'll take that bet. Place my bet. Confirm. Let's go. So I'll put my 500 on the bet. Comment below. Let me know who you're betting for. Go to busr.com/showbiz and place your bets, because I have Daniel Cormier beating Stipe Miocic. Showbiz, don't Hey, and subscribe to this channel. Hit the like button. I'm out. Huh.